Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, FBI Director Christopher Wray is stepping down. He made the announcement ahead of a pending Senate vote that'll determine if Trump's nominee gets the position. Jack Bradley brings us the details on that and more from West Palm Beach. Police say they've matched suspect Luigi Mangione's fingerprints to items found where the United Healthcare CEO was murdered. Chris Beers has updates on the fast-moving case. Firefighters in California are continuing to battle a massive brush fire in Malibu. The blaze has forced thousands of residents in the area to evacuate. Christina Corona in Los Angeles. Israeli troops are operating in a buffer zone near the Syrian border after the government's fall, and thousands of displaced Syrians continue to return home. Jason Perry reports.
This is NTD Evening News. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. FBI Director Christopher Wray announced to Bureau employees that he intends to step down early next year. This comes as President-elect Trump nominated former federal prosecutor Kash Patel to lead the Bureau. NTD's Jack Bradley joins us live now from West Palm Beach, Florida. Good evening, Jack. What is the latest on this?
Good evening, Tiffany. Well, Wray made the announcement at an FBI town hall today. And remember, he was appointed under Trump back in 2017 to fill the position of then FBI Director James Comey, which was then replaced with him. Here he is earlier today.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down. My goal is to keep the focus on our mission, on the indispensable work each of you is doing every single day.
Now, it's no secret that Trump is not a fan of Wray. Wray, under the FBI, under Wray, the FBI searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago back in 2022, looking for the classified documents under that case by Jack Smith, which is now dismissed. And as far as Wray, Trump posted on Truth Social calling it a great day. He said, quote, "I just don't know what happened to him. We will now restore the rule of law for all Americans. Kash Patel is the most qualified nominee to lead the FBI in the agency's history and is committed to helping ensure that law, order, and justice will be brought back to our country again and soon." Now, this paves the way for Kash Patel in his nomination to take up that confirmation vote. Now, Wray would have had to step aside either way here if Kash Patel was confirmed by the Senate. Now, he was on the Hill again today, Kash Patel, saying that he will bring more trust to the FBI. Watch.
We look forward to a very smooth transition, and I'll be ready to go on day one. The senators have been wonderful, and I look forward to earning their trust and confidence through the advice and consent process and restoring law and order and integrity of the FBI.
Now, Patel has been on the Hill for the past week and the week before, and he's been getting strong support from many Republican senators in that key vote that he'll need during the confirmation process. Senator Josh Hawley said today that there's no doubt in his mind that Patel will be confirmed. Tiffany.
And Jack, another one of Trump's nominees, his Defense Secretary pick, Pete Hegseth, is working to lock in that much-needed support from Senate Republicans today. Apparently, his meeting with Senator Susan Collins went well. How significant was this meeting?
Right. Well, Collins did not indicate either way how she'll vote there, but she said, and so did Hegseth, that they did have a very good and productive meeting. And this is a very important meeting to have, as she's a moderate Republican along with some others that he's been trying to win their support. Remember, he can only lose 3 Senate Republican votes, assuming that all Senate Democrats vote against him, and still win the confirmation, assuming that J.D. Vance would cast that tie-breaking vote. Here they both are after meeting earlier today. Watch.
I had a good substantive discussion that lasted more than an hour. We covered a wide range of topics. I obviously always wait until we have an FBI background check, and one is underway in the case of Mr. Hegseth.
It was a great meeting with Senator Collins. And again, office after office, having the opportunity to spend time with these senators who have invested their careers in ensuring that our warfighters get what they need has been an amazing educational process.
Hegseth appears to be having productive talks with many Republican senators, and the ones who haven't outright supported them have spoken positively about their meetings, such as Lisa Murkowski and Joni Ernst. Tiffany.
And Jack, tomorrow, Trump will be named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Where will Trump be tomorrow?
Right, he'll be in New York. Ringing the bell, he's expected to ring the bell of the New York Stock Exchange, which signals an opening to trading there. Now, Trump's wife, Melania, performed the honor during the first term in office. And as for being named Person of the Year, nearly all presidents have received this title. Ronald Reagan was the first to ring that stock exchange bell back in 1985 as the first sitting president to do so. Now, this title from Time Magazine recognizes the person as a real influence on global affairs. Trump was named Person of the Year back in 2016 after winning the presidential election back then. Tiffany?
All right, Jack, thanks for those updates. Updates in the fast-moving United Healthcare CEO murder case. Police say fingerprints of suspect Luigi Mangione match those on items found at the crime scene. They also say they found a notebook they believe hints at a motive in the killing. NTD's Chris Spears has the latest.
New York City police say that fingerprints of the suspect in the United Healthcare murder case match those on items found at the crime scene. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch updated the public at a press conference Wednesday. She also says the gun found on Luigi Mangione matches the shell cases discovered where CEO Brian Thompson was killed. In additional updates, an online fundraiser for Mangione's legal expenses raised over $33,000. The webpage says, quote, "We are not here to celebrate violence, but we do believe in the constitutional right of fair legal representation." News that points to a potential motive in this case includes a notebook police say they found on Mangione in addition to the 3-page handwritten document. Law enforcement says the notebook describes going to a conference and killing an executive. It allegedly says, "What do? You whack the CEO. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence," presumably referring to bystanders. Someone Mangione lived with in Hawaii said the suspect suffered chronic back pain since childhood. Mangione reportedly left Hawaii to get surgery. The banner of his X account depicted an X-ray of someone's spine with 3 screws in it. The person the accused lived with in 2022 is R.J. Martin, founder of Honolulu co-living space Surf Break. Martin told CNN about his impression of Mangione.
That thoughtful, humble, good listener, that's the Luigi I knew. Somebody who could lead a conversation, but at the same time, listen more than he spoke. Somebody who, really cared about those around him and had a larger mind that was socially conscious, somebody that was just good to me and the other people that we lived together with at Surf Break. I've never seen him upset or angry even. Definitely would put him in the chill, like nonviolent category of people.
It just does not add up. It just seems a complete aberration.
I was just stunned, shocked, couldn't believe it.
Mangione was denied bail in a Pennsylvania court on Tuesday, and he's fighting extradition to New York. His next court appearance will be on December 23rd. Chris Beers, NTD News.
The Franklin fire continues to burn through Southern California, intensifying the threat to Malibu. NTD's Christina Corona on site with the latest updates on containment efforts.
We're here in Malibu, where the Franklin fire has scorched nearly 4,000 acres. As you can see behind me, fire crews are trying to contain the blaze. There's lots of smoke, lots of ash in the air, but there is some good news. The fire crews told us that the blaze is now 7% contained. As of Wednesday morning, the blaze has grown to over 4,000 acres with a team of 1,500 firefighters continuing to battle the flames. Officials gave an update Wednesday addressing the blaze's rapid growth.
Last night, fire activity increased significantly along the western edge of the fire and began backing down into Corral Canyon, threatening the Malibu RV park community. Structure threats were mitigated in this area and additional structures were damaged.
So far, 9 structures have been damaged and 7 have been destroyed. Officials share that the blaze is now 7% contained.
Containment lines were improved with fire retardant drops and construction of new hand lines to connect the gaps along the rugged eastern edge of the fire. Weather conditions, including strong winds and low humidities, will be closely monitored today as they will play a critical role in fire behavior.
More residents had to evacuate Wednesday morning.
There are approximately 19,982 people and 7,560 structures in the affected area. Of the 7,560 structures, there are approximately 12,600 people that are under evacuation orders.
Evacuation shelters have been open at the Palisades Recreation Center and the Santa Monica Unified School District in Santa Monica, where pet crates are welcome. Large animals can be taken to Pierce College in Woodland Hills. As of now, there has been no reported injuries, and the red flag warning will remain in effect until 6 p.m. Wednesday. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Reporting from the city of Malibu, Christina Corona, NTD News.
A bankruptcy judge has blocked satirical news outlet The Onion from buying Alex Jones's Infowars media platform. Last month, a court-appointed trustee said The Onion won the auction to acquire the parent company of Infowars, which was sold off as part of a defamation settlement after Jones falsely called the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre a hoax. The Onion's bid was backed by the families of 8 victims of the school shooting and 1 first responder. Alex Jones sued the trustee and Sandy Hook families in an effort to prevent the sale. The bankruptcy judge for the Southern District of Texas cited concerns with the auction process yesterday, saying money was left on the table. In a statement, an attorney for the Connecticut families said they are disappointed in the decision. It's not clear what happens next for Infowars. Jones still owes more than $1 billion to Sandy Hook victims' families. Just days after Syria's government was overthrown, Israeli troops have been seen operating in a buffer zone near Syria. Meanwhile, thousands of displaced Syrians are returning home, hoping for a better life. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest.
Israeli troops were seen operating in the UN-monitored buffer zone between Syria and the Israeli-held Golan Heights on Wednesday, just days after the Syrian government collapsed into the hands of the jihadi group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Since then, Israel has reported striking strategic weapons stockpiles in Syria to prevent them from falling into the hands of terrorists. Israeli forces say they have now destroyed between 70 to 80% of the former Assad regime's strategic military capabilities, according to the Times of Israel. And in the meantime, thousands of displaced Syrians who were living in Lebanon are returning home to Syria.
I am happy because safety has returned to Syria. In the past, there was no safety, and people were afraid of the army.
I am 52 years old. Only in the past couple of days have I felt I could breathe clean air, free from pollution, no bribes, no checkpoints, no humiliation.
This comes as the jihadi group that overthrew the Syrian government reported taking over a city, Deir al-Zor, in Syria, that was controlled by U.S.-backed Kurdish forces. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces had only held the city for a few days as it deployed there and west of the Euphrates River on Friday, replacing Syrian government forces. Turkey also reported striking targets in Syria. Turkish state-run media said a Turkish drone destroyed military equipment in northern Syria near the Turkish border that had been seized by a Kurdish group. The Turkish government has been clashing with Kurdish groups in Syria for years. And the day before, U.S. CENTCOM Commander General Michael Kurilla met with Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. In a statement released by the Iraqi Prime Minister's media office, al-Sudani stressed the importance of respecting the will of the Syrian people and Iraq's readiness to help Syria during its transitional phase. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, the House passes the 2025 National Defense Authorization Act, an annual congressional bill that sets the direction on defense policies and spending with broad bipartisan support. This after last-minute negotiations removed key China-related provisions. Luis Martinez brings us the latest from Capitol Hill. A Senate hearing is investigating what one lawmaker called the worst telecom hack in our nation's history. We'll bring you details on the latest Chinese state-backed cyber espionage campaign after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace says she was attacked on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol last night. In a social media post, Mace says she was physically accosted over her fight to protect women. The Republican lawmaker says the person who attacked her was arrested by Capitol Police. Authorities say that person was charged with assaulting a government official. Mace said her arm will heal after treatment with some ice and a brace for her wrist. The 2025 National Defense Authorization Act has passed the House with broad bipartisan support. The massive defense bill was stripped at the last minute of a slew of China-related provisions. Democrats and Republicans have been pointing fingers at each other over the bill's final form. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
House Republicans and House Democrats voted together to pass the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025. The bill authorizes nearly $1 trillion in defense spending. Lawmakers highlighted that this year's NDAA's main focus is the quality of life of service members, with the most junior enlisted service members slated to receive a 14.5% pay increase.
The NDAA supports the deployment of the National Guard to our southern border, deters China, combats anti-Semitism, supports Israel, cuts inefficient programs and bureaucracy, and guts woke policies at the DoD. It also cares for our service members and seeks to improve their quality of life.
Preparing to wind down the 118th Congress with the NDAA Farm Bill extension that's being contemplated, and of course, the continuing resolution. Democrats have consistently made clear that we are ready, willing, and able to find bipartisan common ground.
Despite broad bipartisan support, the final text of the National Defense Authorization Act was stripped of bills that had already passed on the House floor, some of them with unanimous consent. The Biosecure Act, the Countering CCP Drones Act, and the Falun Gong Protection Act, all bills that had already passed on the House floor and all designed to counter the malign influence of the Chinese Communist Party worldwide, were stripped of the final text of this year's NDAA.
The Senate has, or had, another opportunity to include these provisions in the Defense Authorization Act this year. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries chose to block. We cannot stand by and continue selling the communists in China the rope they will use to hang the United States of America.
The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, another bill that had passed with broad bipartisan support on the House floor, was also missing from the final text of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025. According to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, it's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson who decided to remove that text from the National Defense Authorization Act. In the end, the China bills and the anti-Semitism bills are missing from this year's NDAA that is now on its way to the Senate. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
A Chinese state-backed hacking operation causing a stir on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers today investigate what one senator has called the worst telecom hack in our nation's history. This comes after the White House warns that millions of Americans' personal information could be at risk.
Currently, our communities, our schools, hospitals, our libraries, our police departments, and emergency responders do not have the resources to defend themselves against foreign adversaries. The Salt Typhoon hacks that were discovered last month demonstrate that even the largest corporations in the United States are vulnerable.
U.S. officials last month unveiled a stealthy cyber espionage campaign titled Salt Typhoon. The operation has reportedly compromised at least 8 major telecom networks, including Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. According to the FBI, Salt Typhoon enables Beijing to tap into Americans' phone calls and text messages. President-elect Trump, Senator J.D. Vance, and Vice President Kamala Harris are all victims of this campaign. Salt Typhoon has been acting for roughly 2 years, but the full extent of damages it has caused remain unknown till this day. Lawmakers recommended several countermeasures, including getting companies with ties to China out of American networks. China's dominance over the supply of critical minerals in the spotlight today. The Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party details their findings and proposed solutions. NTD's Melina Weisskopf was at that meeting on Capitol Hill. She brings us the latest.
And they listed their findings after investigating the ways in which the U.S. is dependent on the Chinese Communist Party for critical minerals. Why is this important? Because those critical minerals are used to produce key elements such as semiconductors, anything from basic consumer goods all the way up to advanced military technology. So it's a real problem, the fact that the Chinese Communist Party has dominance over those minerals. So what the lawmakers did is they tried to find ways in the U.S. that we can streamline the production and processing here, mine for those minerals, and try to loosen up some of that dominance that the Chinese Communist Party has over them. They're also today introducing 3 pieces of bipartisan legislation, that is Republicans and Democrats coming together to try to find solutions in this area to help us be more independent in the critical minerals arena. I spoke to the chairman, John Molinar, about their efforts here. Why is it crucial to address this issue? Here's what he told me, as well as one of the Democrats that's also on this committee. Listen. What do you think is the most crucial step that will have the most beneficial outcome?
You know, I think the area of allowing the Department of Interior, the Secretary, to do an analysis of what friendly nations we can work with who already are mining, who already are processing, and identifying how we can immediately lessen our dependence. To me, that's a very good first step, and then we need to build a stronger infrastructure of doing things here.
We're now investing in our people, in our jobs, in our communities, and in manufacturing, and we're not going to let them win the race for the next century. America is going to dominate.
Now, there are several issues at hand here, but one of the main issues that we heard from all of the lawmakers is the issue of processing. So in a sense, what happens is that when we do have those minerals, we send them to China for the processing and then buy them back. So we're essentially losing money to be able to have that processing done in China, and at the same time giving the Chinese Communist Party more control over those critical minerals. Now, the chairman also listed how dependent we are. So I'll just give you a couple of examples here. So the Chinese Communist Party processes 95% of the world's manganese, 73% of its cobalt, 70% of the graphite, and 3% of global nickel. So you can see how much of a hand the Chinese Communist Party really has over those key minerals. One congressman that I spoke to had very interesting ideas. He gave an example of lithium and the innovation that could be used in order to make lithium obsolete in a sense, so that we could change the game, change the way things are working, so that all of the money and research that the Chinese Communist Party has put into those minerals could be pointless, and then we could really have the upper hand. Listen to what this congressman had to say.
Maybe lithium becomes obsolete. It's not needed because there's a new material that can actually do it better than lithium. And then what you've done is you've changed the paradigm. So they stifle it here where we do it much cleaner. And so what happens? The capacity is shipped overseas to China, where they don't really care about the environment. I mean, all you got to do is go to China. I was there about 7 years ago. I didn't see the sun for 10 days. Why? Because all the pollution.
But one of the problems is that many environmental groups actually try to stifle the process of permitting here in America because they're concerned about the effects on the environment. That's why you heard the congressman say, well, yes, it has some effect on the environment, but if we can do it here and try to mitigate those impacts, that would be much better than relying on the Chinese Communist Party, putting our national security at risk, and at the same time also not helping the environment in any sense.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says President-elect Trump would make life a lot more expensive. Trump says the U.S. is subsidizing Canada with $100 billion a year. Find out what an expert in trade, economics, and public policy from Texas A&M has to say about these political tensions. Tune in to NTD's Capital Report with Steve Lance at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The communist Cuban regime's disregard for human rights was the title of this afternoon's hearing of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. Witnesses called for the U.S. to deal with the authoritarian regime by implementing policies to benefit the people suffering under communist rule. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
On Wednesday of Human Rights Week, the House Subcommittee on Global Health, Human Rights, and International Organizations says the U.S. needs to do something different in its dealings with Cuba's communist government.
Civil society lives under heavy surveillance, harassment, and repression. It criminalizes all forms of dissent. It restricts what kind of jobs Cubans can take. It prohibits free movement to and from the island. It is also a Tier 3 country, designated so by the President of the United States and through the Secretary of State and the TIP advisor because of its egregious violations of both sex and labor trafficking.
Chairman Chris Smith says that the Cuban government attempts to control not only the economy, but all elements of society.
It holds blatant disregard for the very concept of human rights, and the United States requires from us a firm policy. We need to do more, not less.
Ranking member Susan Wild says the U.S.'s approach to Cuba hasn't changed much for over 60 years and has not delivered for the Cuban people.
Today, the Cuban people, not the government, face a devastating humanitarian crisis, which has been exacerbated by the U.S. embargo and other sanctions. The current U.S. policy provides the Cuban government with a ready-made talking point on which to blame every failure and crisis that occurs under its leadership.
The subcommittee invited 4 witnesses to the hearing with experiences and expertise on the communist regime.
Those totalitarian regimes do not succumb to dialogue or to entreaties. And what we have is a United Nations system that is morally bankrupt, that has abandoned the Cuban people with a cheap shot at the United States with an annual declaration against the embargo.
The witnesses gave statements and answered questions to aid the members with policy formulation and recommendations. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Coming up, FBI Director Christopher Wray will be stepping down and paving the way for Trump nominee Kash Patel. We talked to a legal analyst about the FBI under Wray's leadership and how it differs from Trump's vision. British farmers protest an incoming 20% inheritance tax on their land. The UK government says the tax will only affect the richest, but farmers say they could lose land they've held for generations. Malcolm Hudson reports from London after the break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. New York police said the gun found on the suspect in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO matches shell casings found at the crime scene. New York officials hope to get Luigi Mangione back with what's called a governor's warrant. Thousands of people, including celebrities, evacuated from their homes as the Franklin fire grows in Malibu, California. Over 1,000 firefighters are battling the blaze, which grew to more than 6 square miles and is only 7% contained. Christopher Wray announced he will step down as director of the FBI early next year. This came after President-elect Trump nominated close ally Kash Patel to take over the bureau. Joining us now to discuss Wray's resignation and the FBI under his leadership is Paul Kemenart, lead counsel at National Legal and Policy Center. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Now, FBI head Christopher Wray has announced he's resigning. That's despite his term scheduled to end in 2027. Wray said about his decision, quote, "In my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray." What do you make of Wray's reason for resigning?
Well, he obviously saw the writing on the wall that once President Trump took office, he was going to be fired, and rightly so. So he's trying to get it ahead of the game and trying to bow out gracefully, et cetera. But he's leaving a pretty sad legacy, and it's about time for him to go. Senator Grassley the other day sent a stinging 11-page letter to Wray just documenting all the problems that he had with the FBI. For example, weaponizing the FBI, putting conservative Catholics who are pro-life on some kind of a terrorist watch list because they may protest abortion clinics, going after parents at school board meetings for complaining about critical race theory. And then, he was very instrumental in allowing the Robert Mueller investigation go far, including allowing an FBI a lawyer doctor a FISA warrant to get a FISA surveillance warrant against Carter Page. Luckily, that FBI lawyer finally was convicted for doctoring this government document and was convicted of a felony. But there was hundreds of others at the FBI who were charged with sexual assault and misconduct, over 600 in the last 10, 15 years. And they just resigned quickly. I mean, there's no discipline there. It was just running amok, and Christopher Wray can't get out of there soon enough.
A CNN report using Gallup data showed that the FBI reached a century-low approval rating this year. That's 41% compared to 50% in 2022. Do you expect to see this number increase under the next administration?
Yeah, I certainly do. We are having Kash Patel as the nominee to take Chris Wray's place as the FBI director. Kash Patel is not going to put up with this nonsense at the FBI. He's got great experience both in national security levels at the Defense Department, former prosecutor himself and a defense attorney. So he's going to straighten out that department and get rid of this bias and this kind of criminalization, over-criminalization and weaponization, I should say, of the FBI. And so I think a lot of the people there are dusting off their resumes right now because they know once Kash Patel gets in there, they're going to be fired or asked to leave or what have you. So I think he will be fair and will shake things up over there. And it certainly does need shaking up.
In terms of Wray, Trump actually appointed Wray in 2017 after he fired Director James Comey. But lately, Trump has spoken negatively of Wray on TV. Critics say that Wray's resignation breaks from the norm, where the 10-year terms are supposed to counter any political influence on the Bureau. What do you make of that?
That's really a ridiculous argument. There is a 10-year term, but the Constitution makes the president the chief executive. He has to have both the Attorney General and the Director of FBI, someone who's going to carry out the mandate that he was elected for. And clearly, Chris Wray is not the person to do that. So President Trump will exercise his powers, but apparently he doesn't need to now because Chris Wray is resigning ahead of the game. But this whole thing about a 10-year term, that's just something that was put there in order to avoid what we saw perhaps during the Nixon era. But again, that's not constitutionally mandated. And if it needs to be changed by the president, that president has the right, if not the duty, to get new leadership.
Now, looking forward, if the Senate clears the confirmation of Kash Patel, Trump's pick for FBI, Wray's resignation clears that way for Patel to head the FBI. What changes do you see at the FBI under someone like Patel?
Well, I think, like I said, Patel will basically clean house. He'll make sure that a lot of the deep state bureaucrats that are there who have their own agenda will be shown the door if they don't think that the main mission of the FBI is to fight crime. And that's what Kash Patel says. Look, we got to go out there and fight crime in the streets, going after the immigration cartels that are trafficking and human trafficking and the fentanyl that's coming across the borders. He and Pam Bondi, who's going to be the new Attorney General, will make a good duo here in terms of accomplishing that mission. So I think he'll be stronger at the FBI, and he won't tolerate some of this political nonsense that's been going on, and he'll be more transparent. Chris Wray has been very obstructive with Congress. There's been even an Inspector General report showing how the department has been covering up for some of the bad apples there. So I think you're going to see a more open and transparent and a more effective FBI, which the American people can now restore some trust into.
Paul Kamenar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
London packed with hundreds of tractors as farmers call on the British government to rethink an incoming tax They fear they will lose their family farms and warn the protests could get stronger if the government does not listen to their concerns. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more from London.
I wish I could stand on a tractor to show you just how many there are here. We're right next to Downing Street, the seat of government here in London, and all the way from Parliament down there to Trafalgar Square right on the other end. The road is filled with tractors. Why, you might be asking? Because farmers are here to stand in opposition to a new inheritance tax the government seeks to impose upon them.
So many tractors that they glitter like Christmas lights. It's the second major protest by farmers in Britain. Agricultural property is currently exempt from inheritance tax, but Britain's government in October announced plans to bring in a 20% tax on land worth over £1 million, or about $1.3 million. It's due to start from April 2026. Protesters say the changes will ruin struggling family farms.
We're here to save my dad's farm. So, yes, because if this all goes through, my dad's quite elderly as well. We're probably not going to have time to leave it to my brother. And my brother's actually helped my dad pay for the farm. So, no, it's
and
not...
we've all worked on it all our lives.
We all
all our
work
lives,
on
and
the
our
farm.
children.
Yeah.
And we want something for the future.
Farmers are said to be asset-rich, but cash-poor. A large inheritance tax bill could mean the end of multi-generational farming families. Another farmer said he's not there because of the incoming tax. For him, it's more than just that.
For the last God knows how many years, they've been making it harder and harder for us to farm. And we produce everyone's food. Without us, everything's going to be a hell of a lot more expensive because it'll be brought in from another country. But they don't seem to understand. And year on year, we get more legislation, more taxes, and it's just harder and harder to turn a profit.
Farmers say their income has been squeezed over the years by Britain's competitive supermarket sector, cheap imports from abroad, and subsidy cuts following Brexit. Founder of Fairfuel UK, Howard Cox, said he successfully campaigned to freeze fuel duty and has now been asked by farmers to support their campaign too.
Farmers who have been actually dealt a horrible tax implication for them, for their future livelihoods, for their family, especially working farmers.
For now, the protests feature signs reading "No farmers, no food," "Save British farming," and a rather more sombre "Rest in peace farming." For now, they play loud horns. They hope to convince the government to change course. If not, it could mean the protests will escalate.
Look at it here today, it's very calm, and it's, in France they would be digging the road up, burning tyres, doing all sorts of things, you know what I mean? Well, we're pretty laid back. But I don't think they're going to take it too lightly now because it's getting a bit out of hand,
One of the protest organisers has warned farmers could block ports, main roads and distribution centres, saying they could bring the country to a standstill and calling on the government to rethink the incoming tax. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
French President Emmanuel Macron is in urgent talks with political parties to appoint a new prime minister, but the National Rally and the leftist coalition were excluded from the talks. Both groups continue to oppose Macron, and some members of parliament are calling for his resignation. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
French President Emmanuel Macron is racing to quickly form a new government. Since Monday, he has been holding talks with various political parties. This marks the first cross-party discussions since June's election left France with a hung parliament.
The President of the Republic continues to reach out to those who are willing to put aside their party affiliations and serve the general interest, provided, of course, that opposition parties are willing to compromise.
But the far-left coalition led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon and Marine Le Pen's National Rally were not consulted. These are the largest groups in parliament, both of which supported the no-confidence motion that resulted in the fall of the government. The leftist coalition has repeated calls for Macron to resign and stated that they will not accept a new prime minister who's not from their group.
We want a left-wing prime minister. So it's up to the president to explain to us why he would choose a right-wing prime minister, as he did the first time, with the consequences we all know about now.
Macron plans to name the new prime minister by Thursday evening. According to political commentators, the French presidency has been navigating from one crisis to another since the snap elections in June. And if there's a winner from this political turmoil, that would be Marine Le Pen's national rally. A new poll showed that the French gives her a new high of 38% of vote for the next presidential election, confirming her party as the first opposition group in the country.
Coming up in college football, could flag planting soon become a felony? Maybe in Ohio if a very specific law gets passed. Dave Martin joins us to explain after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer now for your sports news. We're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, a lot going on today, but let's start in baseball as both the Yankees and Red Sox upgraded their pitching staffs over the last 24 hours. Do teams normally wait for the first big domino to fall before making their moves?
Yeah, that's typically how it is. And that domino, of course, in this case was Juan Soto. Once it became clear he wasn't going to sign with the Yankees, they obviously pivoted to plan B. Apparently signing Max Fried to this 8-year deal with $218 million. That was plan B. Now, I'm guessing they had to wait before making this kind of offer because, you know, if you sign Soto to their reported $760 million offer, I don't know that they have enough left over to get Fried. In any case, they got a good one, though. Though free agent deals for pitchers, you know, in their 30s can be risky, so there's that. But Fried right now is a very good pitcher. Now, meanwhile, the Red Sox countered by trading for Chicago White Sox ace Garrett Crochet, according to reports. I thought this is a very good deal by Boston. They gave up 4 minor league prospects. I'll guarantee 2 of them were very highly thought of. But Crochet, he's only 25 years old. He's still 3 years away from becoming a free agent, so his salary is a lot more palatable right now. I would expect some more dominoes to fall here soon. You know, once Soto signs, all these dominoes are going to fall. Probably Corbin Burns maybe is next, so we'll have to stay tuned for that.
Well, shifting gears to soccer, FIFA has announced that Saudi Arabia has been named World Cup host for 2034. That's despite criticism for their human rights violations. Now, does it seem like the sports world has become more accepting of them now that Live Golf is in its 3rd season?
You know, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. There was a lot of criticism aimed at Phil Mickelson when he joined that league, which is funded by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. But since then, you know, that was 2021. A number of even higher profile golfers have also defected. And then there's, of course, the PGA's intention to do an about face and merge with LIV. Now, those talks are apparently still ongoing. This is like a year and a half later, but it's still pretty big news. But now Saudi Arabia has also gotten into soccer. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is paid $200 million a year to play on their club team. Even tennis star Rafael Nadal agreed to be Saudi Arabia's tennis ambassador. I don't think these things happen without LIV Golf being the first one. They kind of took the lumps for that. But in any case, working with Saudi Arabia certainly seems to pay well.
Looking at college football news, an Ohio lawmaker is proposing a bill that would make it a felony to plant a flag in the middle of Ohio Stadium where the Buckeyes play. What's the reasoning here?
I guess it's to prevent another brawl. I can't imagine this would pass though, but I love the spirit of this bill, which is called the Ohio Sportsmanship Act. This all stems from that brawl a couple weeks ago when some Michigan players planted their school flag at midfield after beating Ohio State. I mean, it was right on their logo. I mean, that's like poking the bear. Started an instant fight, involved numerous players on both sides. Police had to use pepper spray to break it up. It even resulted in an injured police officer. Now, according to this bill, anyone who does this on game day is guilty of a 5th-degree felony, which is the least severe of felony, but it still carries a 6 to 12-month prison sentence. Now, this was introduced by State Representative Josh Williams, who also said it would apply to Ohio State players as well. So it's a pretty serious bill here.
Well, we do have some breaking news. ESPN is reporting now that Bill Belichick is finalizing a deal to become North Carolina's football coach. Are you surprised he didn't hold out for an NFL job?
You know, a little bit. You know, he was passed over for 6 openings last offseason. Maybe didn't see that changing. Plus, I mean, he's been in the league since the 1970s. He's the most successful coach ever. Usually those NFL coaches stay in the NFL or they retire. Maybe if he had tried again this offseason, he would have got a job. At college football, they are hiring right now. I mean, their regular season just ended. The transfer portal opened up just a few days ago, so the Tar Heels needed an answer pretty quick here. Meanwhile, the NFL season, they don't really stop for another month. In any case, I think the Tar Heels did really well. He brings instant credibility. I'm sure they'll be ranked just in the preseason top 25 next year just based on this. And this is a program they weren't really lacking in talent. They just weren't like a powerhouse program yet. Plus, for Belichick, as a head coach in college, he's in charge of the roster. Now, he might not have got that with an NFL team like he had previously with the New England Patriots. So I think it's a great hire for North Carolina.
Well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.